Putin's regime on the edge, panic inside the Kremlin, coup rumors, economic collapse, and growing unrest. Russia is spiraling into chaos. The FSB is hunting for enemies, accusing exiled opposition figures of plotting to overthrow the regime. At the same time, the Russian economy is crumbling under the weight of war and sanctions. Soaring debt, vanishing fuel, and skyrocketing prices are pushing the system to breaking point. But the real blow comes from abroad. New US sanctions are shaking Moscow's oil empire to its core. Trump has changed his tone, now threatening Putin with financial collapse unlike anything Russia has faced before. Putin's fear, Trump's pressure, and the crisis that could bring down Russia. Let's talk about it. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Maria Farafonova, and here are the latest news. Putin is once again afraid of losing power and is searching for someone to blame to calm the panic. This month, Russia's Federal Security Service accused the exiled Mikhail Khodorkovsky and 22 members of the Russian Anti-War Committee of preparing the coup d'etat. According to the FSB, the committee, created to oppose Russia's war in Ukraine, is allegedly fighting for the violent seizure of power and the overthrow of the constitutional order in the Russian Federation. Mikhail Khodorkovsky himself calls these accusations lies. Kremlin analysts say this is a clear sign of a new sense of vulnerability at the very heart of the Russian state.
His tells us the Kremlin is slipping into panic. Putin is searching for enemies to try to shore up his regime.
Putin is in panic, terrified of a coup inside the Kremlin and the possibility of being removed from power. And it's worth noting, he now has plenty of new reasons to be afraid. So what exactly is Putin so scared of, and who is behind this growing sense of danger? The details in our report.
For almost a quarter of a century, Vladimir Putin has been building a system of personal power in Russia. A totalitarian state where any dissent is punished and fear is the glue that holds the regime together. But today, this monolith is beginning to crack. The Russian dictator is in a panic, afraid of losing his grip on Russia. As the Telegraph writes, the bunker dweller carefully protects his regime from any threats. Recently, the FSB accused Mikhail Khodorkovsky and 22 other members of the Russian Anti-War Committee of preparing a coup d'etat. According to the security service, the organization is allegedly planning a violent seizure of power and the overthrow of the constitutional order.
This tells us that the Kremlin is paranoid. Putin is searching for enemies in an attempt to strengthen his regime. John Herbst, senior director of the Eurasia Center at the Atlantic Council and former US ambassador to Ukraine.
After spending 10 years in a Siberian prison, Khodorkovsky was released in 2013 and fled to Europe, where in 2022 he founded the Anti-War Committee. In an interview with The Telegraph, he stated that the FSB's accusations are a reflection of the Kremlin's fear of the future and the issue of the transfer of power.
What do we have in Russia? A prime minister whom no one elected, but who was appointed by Putin. Courts appointed by Putin. A parliament whose seats were filled as a result of fraudulent elections and in whose legitimacy no one believes. Mikhail Khodorkovsky, Russian entrepreneur and publicist.
They couldn't care less about the liberals who fled after being neutered. They're not afraid, not in the slightest. They're afraid of each other. Of the same kind of predators. Those who circle around you, smile in your face every day, and swear loyalty. Those are the ones who can do something. And Putin knows this perfectly well. And Prigozhin's mutiny, even if it was staged, clearly showed that no one is going to defend him. Neither the National Guard, nor the police, nor the rank and file, nor the generals. No one cares, no one gives a damn. And that's why Putin is afraid.
And indeed, fear becomes the key word. The dictator is cornered and the economic situation only heightens the anxiety. Russia's Minister of Economy Maxim Reshetnikov has admitted the country is on the verge of a recession. The banking system is suffocating under the debts of defense enterprises. According to Harvard analyst Craig Kennedy, $190 billion in loans have been issued to defense industry companies without guarantees. And now this bubble could burst at any moment. Moreover, Ukrainian drones have destroyed more than half of Russia's oil refineries, forcing the country into huge lines at gas stations and causing a fuel shortage. And new sanctions from across the ocean have only intensified the blow. Donald Trump imposed the most painful restrictions since the beginning of the war. The giants Rosneft and Lukoil have come under attack. Now China and India are reducing their purchases of Russian oil. Almost 3 million barrels per day are at risk, and along with them, half of the Kremlin's revenues. But Putin fears not only internal threats, but external ones as well. The dictator is pulling more and more air defense systems toward the Kremlin. There are already 5 layers of defense around the capital. Panzer, S-300 and Se-400 systems are being brought in from all regions.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
Putin has plenty of reasons to worry. The Russian economy is starting to falter. Businesses have been hit by high interest rates. The cost of government borrowing has surged, and in June, Economy Minister Maxim Reshetnikov warned that the country is on the verge of recession. Warnings are mounting about the potential avalanche of bad debt that could trigger a financial crisis. And now, small pockets of protest are emerging. Earlier this month, hundreds gathered in St. Petersburg Square to sing a banned song calling for Putin's overthrow. To keep the economy afloat during the years of war, the Kremlin forced banks to lend to defense companies instead of relying solely on state funds. To make that happen, banks were given a green light to issue loans without standard credit history checks or reserve requirements to cover potential defaults.
All this time, they have been financing the war with borrowed money, but it hasn't shown up on the state balance sheet. It's just a dark mass of debt, and no one knows exactly how much will default once the loans come due. As for buying victory on the battlefield, Moscow already understands this is beyond its means. The longer they wait, the greater the risk of crisis, because the debt situation will not resolve itself.
Why could a coup actually happen? The answer is simple. The war is hitting ordinary Russians the hardest. Thick plumes of smoke have been rising from oil refineries across the country this year after an unprecedented wave of Ukrainian drone attacks. Gasoline prices have surged by 40% since the beginning of the year, and officials have even imposed fuel rationing in occupied Crimea. Social media is flooded with videos of massive lines of cars waiting at gas stations. More on the unfolding fuel catastrophe inside the aggressor state in our next report.
The fuel crisis in Russia has even reached the oil-rich Tyumen region. Tyumen, have you seen this? I'm going to the gas station today. I give you 3,000 hryvnias and say, please fill me up with a full tank of 95th gasoline for 3,000 hryvnias. And they tell me that's how it is for you because you can only fill up to 30 liters. Gasoline is running out in more than half of Russia's regions.
Every day's work at the Rosneft gas station continues. There is no gas station anywhere except Rosneft. He ordered like this, now constantly in the check queue.
But the authorities, as always, say that the situation is under control, with only a slight increase in prices.
We understand the current situation. Prices have really risen significantly. The most important thing, of course, is gasoline, which is prominently present at all gas stations.
But as I said, maybe there is somewhere, but people say otherwise.
Guys, there is no gasoline at almost one gas station. And the right row that we see with you is all aligned for a gas station where there's a chance there's still gas. Most likely there is 100 or 95th. And I started filming somewhere in the middle of this sausage to show you what was happening.
Russia will become dependent on fuel imports. Oil companies will not be able to resume oil refining at previous volumes until June.
In the year 2026, the Western nations collectively and firmly stood in unwavering solidarity behind Ukraine, offering substantial support. Simultaneously, Russia initiated a full-scale military conflict with Ukraine, an aggressive act that consequently and directly created a profound and far-reaching geopolitical conflict with the entire Western world. And now Russia's problem is that it cannot put aside what is necessary for the normal functioning of not only its oil refining component of the economy, but also its economy as a whole.
Russian refineries remain backward in technology and production structure. When some factories stopped working, the country actually lost a significant part of its...
This refers to something that is located or originates within an organization or system. Capacities refer to the inherent abilities, capabilities, and potential functions that an entity possesses. They represent the maximum output or performance that can be achieved under specific conditions, encompassing all the various facets and dimensions of its operational scope and potential for development. And now they are confidently saying that they will completely and fully recover from these significant blows and impossibilities, thereby effectively reducing the overall need for extensive fuel production. Not only by...
Accordingly, a significant decrease in fuel production will inevitably lead to many cars being completely out of service.
The Russian refinery will produce significantly lower quality gasoline. This gasoline will end up in the engines of Russian cars, and it's not a given that they'll even be able to run on it, because their engines are accustomed to a certain level of quality. And now that level is being lowered in Russia. It will clog the engines and lead to a huge number of car breakdowns. So this is the reality that is now dawning in Russia. And again, it's further proof that when you are technologically backward, and Russia is technologically backward, it's probably not a good idea to wage war against the world.
The gasoline deficit on the domestic market reached 20% of consumption in September due to a lack of supply. Wholesale gasoline prices have jumped by 40 to 50% since the beginning of the year.
It's obvious that Russia is already running out of capacity. Yes, some capacity still exists, but as they say, not all of our drones have reached their targets yet. So this is a prospect for the future, sometime around early 2026, when Russia will be hugely dependent on external fuel suppliers. I repeat, in a country that's essentially a giant gas station.
To somehow put out the fire in the fuel market, the authorities introduced a total ban on gasoline exports from Russia, relaxed environmental requirements for refineries, quadrupled fuel purchases from Belarus, and also eliminated import duties to begin supplies from China.
In September, compared to August of 2023, Belarus quadrupled its fuel supplies. So they were supplying a small amount, but now we understand that Belarus is playing a huge role. Even though Belarus has, yes, arguably the most modern refineries from the former Soviet Union, Mozyr and Novopolotsk, their capacity still won't be enough to cover Russia's needs. And then there's China, but neither Belarus nor China will be supplying fuel, let's say, at the prices Russia wants.
By the end of the year, Russia could find itself dependent on fuel imports for up to 60% of its needs.
In addition to Belarus and China, fuel supplies to Russia will also come from Azerbaijan. But just like with Belarus and China, Azerbaijan, a nation with its own strategic interests, won't be doing it on the cheap. There will undoubtedly be a significant markup, seeing how Russia is now entirely dependent on Azerbaijan for certain crucial supplies. Azerbaijan will, of course, try to fully take advantage of this unique and opportune situation, so there will certainly be certain considerably higher prices, but Russia truly has no other viable option available to them. Right now, Russia is truly becoming more and more dependent on external suppliers.
Since the beginning of August, UAVs have struck dozens of large refineries in Russia, leading to the deepest fuel crisis in the country's history. And the further this goes, the worse the situation will get.
And now, on top of the economic crisis, Donald Trump is tightening the screws. Frustrated by the lack of progress in ending the war in Ukraine, the US president announced new sanctions against two of Russia's largest oil companies. India and China, the main buyers of Russian crude since the war began, responded by curbing their purchases. This threatens to deprive Putin's war machine and the Russian state of crucial oil revenues.
For the first time in 3.5 years, Russia is truly hurting. I think a certain panic has begun.
This month, the US president has shifted his tone toward Putin. Speaking alongside Rutte in the Oval Office, Trump criticized Putin for not taking peace talks seriously and expressed hope that the new sanctions would force the breakthrough.
I just felt the time had come. We'd been waiting a long time.
Trump has grown increasingly frustrated with Russia's failure to make progress toward a peace agreement. And now, because of Putin's stubborn and uncompromising stance, his planned talks with Trump in Budapest have been cancelled. What's really going on behind the scenes? All the details in our report.
Is Putin fooling Trump again, or is Kremlin diplomacy simply preserving tradition? The so-called summit between the Russian dictator and the American president, which according to the latter was supposed to take place in 2 weeks, has been postponed indefinitely. The preliminary meeting between the two sides, represented by Lavrov and Rubio and allegedly scheduled for October 23rd, has already been cancelled. According to CNN, during a phone conversation between the representatives, it turned out that they see the solution to the problem in completely different ways. After this information appeared in the media, Lavrov himself responded. He essentially confirmed that the Russians, as before, are sticking to their position.
I want to officially confirm that Russia has not changed its position compared to the understandings reached during the lengthy negotiations between Putin and Trump in Alaska. These understandings are based on the agreement that was reached at that particular time, which President Trump very succinctly and clearly expressed when he stated that what is truly needed is a long-term, sustainable and lasting peace, rather than simply an immediate ceasefire that would ultimately lead nowhere and accomplish nothing. We remain fully and unwaveringly committed to this formula, and we continue to stand by it as the best path forward for achieving a meaningful and enduring resolution to the conflict.
Peskov also joined in echoing his Kremlin colleagues' fabrications. They say, how can you implement something that was never agreed upon?
You can't postpone something that was never set in stone. Something that was never set in stone. Neither President Trump nor President Putin ever specified exact timelines. Preparation is needed, serious preparation. You heard statements from both the American side and ours that this may take time. Therefore, no specific dates were ever established from the very beginning, at any point.
At the same time, vague statements are coming out of Moscow, not in favor of Putin's visit to Budapest. They say that the trip is unsafe for the aging dictator, since there is a risk of assassination by intelligence agencies. The journey to Hungary is a long one, and in general, the Poles, who have said they could arrest Putin, are capable of terrorist acts.
It is possible to assume that disagreements arose between Lavrov and Rubio. They were unable to reach an agreement on some important issue that needed to be brought to the leaders for approval. This is absolutely realistic and possible. But on the other hand, there may be other underlying factors at play here. This is more in the style of Russian diplomacy, to create confusion once again, make the situation uncertain, and then boldly and courageously go to the meeting to resolve certain issues. In other words, to give up yet another minor and non-essential position.
Meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky is planning to attend the meeting of the Coalition of the Willing, which partners are hastily organizing in London on October 24th. The media, citing a draft of the European Union's conclusions, report that at the meeting, European leaders will confirm their decision to provide financial support to Ukraine over the next 3 years using frozen Russian assets.
Obviously, the expectation is not that we will be fighting for 3 years. The expectation is to put pressure on Russia at these negotiations. That's the real calculation. The main goal is to force Russia to listen to Ukraine's demands. To say, look, Ukraine has 140 billion plus its own funds plus resources from our partners. Altogether, this could amount to 200 to 300 billion over 3 years. These are extremely comparable sums to what Russia currently has.
In addition, according to media reports, Italy will soon join NATO's initiative to purchase American weapons for Ukraine. Previously, its authorities were opposed to this. With the frozen Russian funds, Ukrainians also plan to purchase 25 Patriot systems from the United States, which will protect Ukrainian cities from attacks by the Russian army.
The new sanctions affect roughly 3 million barrels of oil per day, nearly half of Russia's total exports. Bridget Payne, head of energy forecasting at Oxford Economics, believes Russia will still find ways to continue selling its oil, but at even lower prices than what it managed to sell. Russia's economic weakness could prompt Trump to go further.
All the concessions that could be offered to Putin have already been offered. It's time for Trump to play the bad cop.
It appears he's doing exactly that, pushing Russia's economy to the brink. Trump told reporters in the Oval Office that in his opinion, this economy could suddenly collapse any moment, so more restrictions on Putin may be coming next. What do you think about the latest events? Share your opinion in the comments, like the video, and stay informed about the main headlines. More to come?